Hello and welcome, I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes soloing the Stalker. We're level 34 with Dark Phantom, our Dark Melee Stalker. And I've got the Unity Plague from Jenny Firkins, and that is probably going to be our final story arc in the level 30 to 34 range. We are level 34. This will probably get us about halfway there, and then we'll probably not do any recording until we get to level 35. That's my guess, but we'll see how long and what the XP leveling does as we go. We're still on +1 missions, and I really would like to set it to +2. We got to get there, and I think if I can get the right powers and enhancements by level 35 and 6, we should be there. Anyway, speaking of that, and speaking of level ranges and XP and all the rest, somebody made a really good comment in my one of my videos just recently in the last day or two of this recording, which would probably be about a month ago by the time you guys watch this. In that video, the person said that they, by watching me, they got back into COH. Yes, thumbs up. Glad that I could bring more people back into this wonderful game. It's still the best MMO ever made, in my opinion, and one of my favorite games, period, of any kind, and certainly one of my favorite RPGs. Love being a superhero, like the game, love the mechanics, the UI, all the rest of it. You know, you guys have heard me rave and talk about how wonderful. Why didn't I go into hide yet? I don't know. Let's play gate. I've been talking about how wonderful this game is all along because I absolutely love it. So what he said was he picked a server, and I don't know which one it is. I don't think he named it, or she. Sorry, I don't know. The person didn't name it. But they said it's a server, I guess, that has it gives you bonus XP, right? Like very fast XP, and also extra slots or powers or something like that. And they said, well, you know, this is much better for me. I'm busy and I don't have time to do all that really hardcore leveling and everything. And so this sort of makes the point that that it's nice that we have these different servers because each server has its own rules, and you pick the one you like. Right? The one that's officially sanctioned is the set of servers run by Homecoming that all follow the same rules. But, you know, if you want to play one of the other ones, there's really nothing to stop you, other than if you don't want to, you know. So there's that. But then also the one guy that I've been watching a little bit and made the tier list that inspired me to make these videos, where he put Stalkers out in the bottom, right? He said he put them in B tier. He said B is good, B isn't bad. You know, it's A, B, C. It's S, A, B, C, D. He didn't put him in D. But the thing is, it wasn't where he put them. It's what he put above them. And a lot of people felt like, why would you put these other archetypes above the Stalker when the Stalker can stalk missions and just sneak in and defeat everybody that's blocking the prisoners and nobody else, and avoid junk mobs and all this other stuff, and they can, you know, wipe out bosses and elite bosses pretty easily. They're really good at that, right? And so I do have to say, you know, I've not named this person because I don't want to start a flame war. So I'm not going to name him. I'm not trying to keep views away from his videos. I don't have enough subscribers and people watching me that I could possibly affect his video count, even though he doesn't have a huge number of subscribers either. He still has more than I do by quite a lot. So, you know, I can't possibly affect that for him, and so I'm not trying to prevent that. I want to prevent like a flame war between the two channels. Really, there's no need for that. And I do think from some of the comments that he made about the responses to his videos that he definitely feels like he's been flamed and put upon by other people, and that they've been kind of rude to him. And so there's no reason for that. If somebody disagrees with you about a build guide or something, like, who cares? It's a game. There's no reason to be mean or rude to people. But he's made several videos about this, and I'm going to talk about why I think that is. And again, this is not to attack any one person, but really we're talking about like kind of human nature and why maybe people behave in these ways. But in his more recent video, he explained that his preferred way of playing is not too different from mine in the sense that he does a lot of soloing or just co-op with one person. He doesn't do a lot of big groups, I don't think. He doesn't do incarnate trials and all that really heavy stuff. He just likes to solo or pair up and just do some nice, fun, relaxed, enjoyable missions, which is literally what I'm doing here, right? One of the reasons I like Stalkers and Masterminds and some of these other archetypes is that you can be relaxed while you're playing those characters, and in particular, you don't have to, like, you're not on the edge of a knife with them, and you don't have to concentrate too much. And the reason I like that is because then I can chat with you guys, and I can rant and do things like that, and hopefully make some interesting videos, which I don't think I'd be able to do if I had to play a character that was less comfortable at that for me, right? So he said he wants to play casually, but then his definition of it was, like, at first he said, that means not necessarily doing... Oh, we have these guys to aggro over here. That means not necessarily doing +5 or +4 missions and things like that. And I completely agree. I don't do +4 missions most of the time until at least we're, we have sets and we're in our late 40s or something, if we even get there. And so I'm not going to be doing, I'm doing +1, maybe +2, but I don't do that stuff either. He then said that his preferred way to play is +0, right? And look, I want to state, that is what the developers meant the game to be like. When it first came out, you could only play at +0. That's how the developers intended people to play, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing from levels 1 to level 50 entirely on +0. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You wouldn't get misstreaks like this on +0, because I'd have way more than a 55% chance to hit. I'd have like a 70 or something like that, right? So all those misstreaks that I hate wouldn't happen if I just kept the game on +0 the way the developers intended, right? Now, I happen to like going up and fighting orange and red cons, but that doesn't make it the right way to play. And there's absolutely nothing at all wrong with somebody who wants to play a +0 mission, or all the way to 50 at +0. And what he said was, as he levels up, because I think he was asked in his live chat or something, I think he was doing a live stream, and they said, well, what do you do as you level up? And he said, as I level up, if I feel that the +0 is at ×1, which is the normal, right, where normally you do +0 times, should be ×1 players, right? There's one player in the mission, is he sets it to ×2 or 3, right? He gets more +0 enemies, more white cons in each spawn, rather than going up to +1 or 2 or 3, right? Again, that is a totally valid choice. This is one of the options that the developers put into the game. I don't prefer to play that way because I feel like the danger doesn't go up and it just takes longer, and I've said many times that just because it's longer doesn't make it more of a challenge, right? So I much prefer... we're going to leave those guys right now because I don't like the sentries. We'll come back to them. I much prefer having a short, deadly fight to having a long, non-deadly fight, right? Where there's no chance of me losing. And so I prefer fighting +2s and 3s at this point. If it weren't for the misstreaks, we'd be on +2. Maybe even +3. I don't think it would be any danger of this character face planning, although there would be more danger of it certainly than against +1s, and absolutely than against +0s, right? For my money, if I'm going to play a mission, I would rather play against smaller, harder spawns than larger, easier spawns. But that's my personal taste, and it isn't the right way to play. However, it does give insight into why this person did their soloing tiers the way they did, and why they so focused on, for soloing ability, on whether the character can take on large numbers of enemies, right? When I originally heard that, come on guys, aggro. When I originally heard that, I said, well, the only way I would fight large groups of enemies is if I was made a mistake and I over aggroed, right? But if you're on ×3 or ×2, you're going to get bigger spawns. You're going to get spawns of 6 or 7 or 8 guys, maybe with a lieutenant in them. That will be more challenging than just 3. I don't. Again, if it's white cons against a scrapper or a stalker or something, like they have no real chance of doing anything to you. So I don't find it interesting because there's no risk, right? If 20 white guys could not do anything to this character, it would just take her a really long time to beat them because she has to do them one at a time. Whereas if you have a blaster, 20 white guys, 20 white cons would be easy pickings because you can AoE them, right? And the blasters do enough damage and have enough AoEs that are in a big enough radius that they absolutely can melt large groups of white cons, right? It's just that they can't melt large groups of orange cons. And if you're only fighting 2 enemies that are orange and red or red and purple to you, having that AoE does nothing against this sentry. AoEs generally do a little less damage than single target, which means your AoE might take out this guy, but the sentry is going to get out that cairn and then start pounding on you, right? And so, whereas if I'm a stalker, I mean, I'm going to do these guys while we're waiting for build. Oh wait, build-up's here. I don't want to risk aggroing them. We got build-up. We can take this guy out in 1 or 2 shots, right? And he won't have time to be annoying and put out that cairn, which I hate so much, right? So my feeling out of Stalker is, hey, they're great to solo because I can stop these individual strong enemies from doing stuff. But that's because I'm purposely setting the game to face me against individual strong enemies like purple bosses and stuff. If you're purposely playing to have, instead of a few tough enemies, lots of weaker enemies, which again is a totally valid way to play, I am not criticizing it, then you're going to have a different soloing experience. And that puts the tier list in a different light. So what's he talking about? Well, these guys, he's saying, and I might agree, are B tier for fighting 3 and 4x, right? If we look at the mission, right, times 3 or 4 sized white spawns swarming with a bunch of weak minions. Because we still have to target and take out 1 or 2 at a time, right? We can do a little bit with Shadow Maul, but it's mostly taking out 1 or 2 at a time. And so it's just going to take me a really long time to get through that spawn, whereas if I was a blaster throwing AoEs out or a burn tanker throwing out burn patches, I might melt those white cons really easily, and you would say, okay, that quote-unquote solo's better. In that circumstance, it might. Right? Now, what does this have to do with the first guy who was talking about getting XP fast and gaining powers faster because he doesn't want to dedicate all that time to it? It's the same idea, right? It's how you want to play. And this is my point. Nobody's right. The nice thing about City of Heroes is, I'm going to aggro both of these guys, right? Let me see if I can get this guy first. I don't know if I can avoid aggroing the guy down below. Let's see. I might actually run from this. Not because I'm afraid of anything, but I hate the cairns. And I don't think I'm going to be able to stop both of these guys from putting down cairns. See if I can just avoid aggroing the other sentry. I just don't want to aggro him. I don't care about anybody else, but I don't want to deal with the cairns. See, I feel like this is a superior soloing experience, right? Because I could ignore the cairns. The sentry is not going to be able to put out the cairns because I'm going to wait till build up. I'm just going to take my time and I'm going to go hit this guy and boom. Now, I got to sit here and wait 22 seconds. If I were a scrapper, I'd go in there and hit him, and in 22 seconds, maybe he's dead. But I'm going to be annoyed the whole 22 seconds. Instead, I'm just going to wait, right? So this is all how you want to play. And the beauty of City of Heroes is that there's a mission difficulty setting. You can set it on anything you want from -1 to +4 and even above now. You can set it on anything you want from ×1 to ×8. And any combination thereof, +2 × 3, +3 × 4, +1 × 8. However you want to do it. Whatever is fun for you, you can do. And different archetypes are going to solo well against some of those settings and not others. Right? So again, Scrapper Stalker, probably Brute. I'm going higher on level, but staying at ×0 or ×1 or ×2, no more than that. Because I don't want to have to fight all those enemies. It just takes a long time. right? But if you want to fight those enemies, if you want to feel like you're fighting swarms of guys, then you're going to have to set it lower, and it might be more fun and interesting to play a ranged character who does a lot of AoEs, like a Blaster or a Dominator or a Corruptor, right? And then those might be more fun to solo. My attitude has not generally been, how can I take down weak swarms of enemies, because I don't tend to find that interesting. But that's because I tend to play single target focused archetypes like Scrappers and Stalkers and Brutes. And Brutes are a little better at AoE, but really all three of those archetypes are designed to go one-on-one against tough enemies. Boss killing, elite bosses, lieutenant and a minion, 2 lieutenants, right? Reds and purples. That's what Brute, Stalkers, and Scrappers are really good at. Because I tend to play those characters, that's how I think I should do missions. And if you look at how I did my Dominator and my Mastermind, I tried to do that with them, and I found that I couldn't, right? And I'll be honest, to me, I was thinking there's something wrong with the way I'm playing. And there was, but it wasn't that I wasn't a good player. It was that, maybe you want to call it that, but it was that I was trying to set the game the same way for all the different archetypes. And really, they don't all play the same way. Right? I was smart enough to realize with my tanker, even early on when the game was live and they had just did the mission settings, I had my Scrapper on +2, and I had my tanker on +1, but they didn't have, you couldn't do times. You had +1, +2, and then more enemies. And the more enemies was like times 3 or 4. So I had her basically set on +0 times 4. And the reason I did that was because as a tanker, I had more fun having swarms of guys around me and beating them up. And because they were weaker and tankers don't do a lot of damage, I was able to do those about the same speed as +2, but times 1, right, with my Scrapper. And so each archetype is going to be better at soloing in different ways. Okay, so we're going to investigate the area, 2 test subjects to capture. Oh, this is the Unity Plague, so we're going to have to find the guys that look like the fungi of Yugoth, or whatever you want to... Well, not really, but they look... These guys. These guys are fun to fight. Is the other one over there? Oh, cool. Both of them are here. All right, so we'll be able to do them both. Let's see. It's a boss, red. Don't know how much resistance these guys have. I probably won't need a lot of inspirations. I am going to take inaccuracy because I don't want to miss. Watch us roll a 99. I will wait for build-up to come back. Okay, here we go. Yeah, we got half. Now let's watch this. 25-14. My guess is he's resistant to one, vulnerable to the other. Can't get too close. Can't get too close. I'm going to have to pull him over. I don't want to aggro the other boss. Mostly because I just, like, I'm not afraid of the other boss. I'd rather just assassinate him, you know? So we should get this guy here. Yeah, so... Okay, no, it's 1913. Okay. So the question is... What does this guy take? We missed. Why when I'm trying to figure out the numbers does it make me miss? I'll wait the 7 seconds and do it again. I just want to see what damage he takes. See, that guy was taking 19 and 13 per shot. This guy's taking 19 and 16. So vulnerable to something, resistant to something else. Oh, these swarms are so annoying. Fortunately, you can crit them and just get rid of them. They slow you, by the way. So let's take a look if we can see in the combat. Shadow Mole for 16 points of smashing, 19 of negative. So it looks like they're... Let's see. What it says we do here... Whoops. In Shadow Mall is... 17 and 7. About 18 and 18. So if they're doing 16... Some of that resistance could be level-based because it's +1. So it might be no resistance to smashing and a little bit of vulnerability to negative. Not sure. Alright, we'll just fight him normally. It's fine. See if we can hit the swarms. Yeah, one nice thing about dealing with the swarms as a dark character is you can catch them in the dark melee in the Shadow Maul, and they may get better heal. Let's grab some endurance. Let's placate. We're fine. Took a little longer because we didn't get the benefit of the assassination and I was impatient, but it's fine. So we defeated the two test subjects and now we can just super jump over there and get the glowy. Oh, that's why I was having endurance problems. I forgot to turn on combat jump. So yeah, I mean, a lot of this is really down to how you want to play the game and which archetype, realistically, which archetype is best to solo partly depends on how you want to play. My mindset is always which archetype can get through the missions with the least amount of trouble, right? The one that can basically own the mission map. To me, that's the Stalker, right? Like you can stalk the mission, you can choose your fights, there's lower risk, right? Relative to just about any other standard you want. But it's not going to be fast against ×4 and ×5 missions. You need AoEs for that. For speed. There's not going to be any risk. Especially if it's +0, right? They're like +0, this character can fight 100 +0s. They're not going to do anything to her. She's got a self-heal. And in the amount of time it would take them to chew her hit points down, she can hit the self-heal and it'll go back up, and then she's got Siphon Life for the rest of it. There's no way, and then she can suck so much endurance from a swarm like that every minute. We'll never run out of endurance. Our hit point bar will never go below half. They won't be able to hit me because they're at -30. And if they're +0, that will put them to 20% to hit. And then as I'm punching them, the guys who are getting punched are getting below that. They're just not going to be able to do anything. And the damage they do will not be enough as white cons to really threaten me. I could have 20 guys around me and it won't be a problem, but it would take a very long time to defeat them, right? And if you're interested in speed, that's not going to be very good, right? But I normally don't set missions like that. I normally set them on +2 or +1. And if it's too easy, I just raise the mission level, right? But keeping it at a lower level and making it ×2 would get rid of all the misstreaks that I hate, right? That is one way to make it harder without increasing the misstreaks. I just never do that because all that does then is, I mean, it makes it a little harder, but it mostly just makes it take longer. I guess that swarm vanished. Maybe I killed it as it departed. They're not very tough. They're super annoying because they do slow you down. And if you get bitten by a lot of swarms, then you will noticeably see that your recharge times have gone down, have gotten much slower, right? But I do want to say, like, people shouldn't be insulting somebody because of their playstyle. You definitely shouldn't. Now, that said, I do think this particular YouTuber, maybe brought a little bit of it on himself. I mean, like, nobody deserves to be insulted, and I'm not justifying that at all. But I think some of what happened, and somebody tried to say this in the comments of, like, the third video this guy made about this stuff. But he said it in an insulting way, so I don't think the video author really understood what the guy was saying because he was being rude. And it's like, if you're going to try to explain something that theoretically helps somebody and then you're rude while doing it, you just completely invalidated your entire point. Nobody's going to listen to you when you're being mean, right? They're just going to hear the rudeness, and they're not going to, like, I think he was trying to be helpful or explain, but, I'm reading this comment going, well, you could have said that a little nicer. And the person who made the video, was justifiably, I don't want to say offended, but he was annoyed by it, and I don't think he listened to the advice at all, right? And I don't blame him, because why would you listen to the advice of somebody who's being rude and insulting, right? So, but what this person tried to say, didn't say it well. I did not go in and try to make that same point. Okay, we got to get away from the courts. The courts will utterly destroy my defense, right? It gives them like plus 75 to hit or something sick. So we have to stay out of it. Yeah, I remember when I was playing my Super Reflex Scrapper and I was fighting these guys and they started laying down the quartz and I was just getting absolutely killed. And I even like put a couple of Lux on in addition to my toggles and stuff. I'm like, what the heck? And somebody said, oh yeah, the quartz, it gives them like, I don't know if there's any way to see what it does. But it gives them like plus 50 or something to hit. So they basically completely negates this entire defense. It's like I don't have toggles on. Anyway, so here's what happened, right? This guy has made a lot of videos, and he titles, and in the cards and the titles of his video, the thumbnails, it's very tutorial-esque, right? How to build a blaster, how to build a controller, the best way to level from 10 to 20, best zones to hunt in, whatever. I'm making those up, but it's basically like a whole bunch of advice videos, tutorials. And what this person who was trying to help but was being rude said was, when you're making tutorials like that, it seems to the people who are watching your videos like you think you know a lot about the game, right? And so then if you then give advice that is, shall we say, considered noob advice, like not very sophisticated, not the sort of standard thing that the experienced players would do. And by the way, I don't do the sort of thing that the experienced players do either necessarily. He said, when you're doing that, right, people just assume you know what you're about because you've made, these tutorials and stuff. And so if you then, in the tutorial, tell people to do things that an experienced player would never tell anybody to do, it makes it, you've sort of opened yourself up to criticism because you're making tutorial videos, right? So it's like, if, let's say I didn't know about Ouroboros or something, and I played all the way through the game never knowing about that, and I'm making tutorials about what story arcs are available in the game, right? Well, it would be justifiable for somebody to be like, buddy, you missed some of the best, all the Fault Line story arcs, some of the best story arcs in the game. How can you say a tutorial on the best story arcs and you missed some of the story arcs that people typically classify as among the best ones in the game? Now, it doesn't mean that everybody has to like them, right? But I should be aware of them and at least explain why I'm not going to include them on the list, right? But to not know about them or act like I don't know about them would make it seem like, well, what do you know if you don't even know which story arcs there are, right? How are you making a story arc tutorial without knowing what the story arcs are? And so I think that's what the one person who was being rude was trying to say to this guy is, well, you make all these tutorial videos, people expect to come here and see expertise, and at least to the experienced players, the advice he's giving seems to lack expertise, right? How do you not know these basic things about the way the game works? And I don't think he doesn't know them. I think he just, A, didn't talk about them, and B, they weren't his point. Like, he knows that you can set the game on +3 or 2, but he doesn't set it there, right? But I think that when you're making these videos, right? This is, if you notice, man, I use a lot of, what do you want to call it, weasel words or whatever. I'm always putting caveats. This is how I like to do it. I prefer to do it this way. I do this. I like to do this. This is how I build. This is why I care about DPE and not DPS. I don't tell anybody they should care. I just say this is what I do. And I think that's what he's trying to do, but by making a video called the best slotting method, right? Or something like that. It's not, I don't know if he made one, but if he makes a video something like that called the best slotting method, then it makes it seem like you think it's objectively the best method, and a lot of people would look at that and go, no, that's not the best slotting method. You're actually kind of wasting influence doing that, right? Right, so for instance, we talked about, I said that this same person said that at level 22, they start putting in level 25 generic enhancements. And I said, I don't see the point of that, right? Because these guys are, well, these guys are about at plus 0, 33%. The 30s are 34. So this is an upgrade from a plus 0, like on average over a 5-level range. You're going to have the enhancements be plus 2, plus 3, plus 2, plus 1, plus 0, minus 1, possibly minus 2 before you upgrade again, right? So you're going to kind of average slightly above white enhancements, slightly above even level enhancements. So you're going to average probably right around 34. So to me, once you get to 30 and you have the 34% buff, these are equal to or better than a single origin of the same type, and it never expires. So I may as well slot them in. I don't want to slot in 25s because they're only plus 32%, and that's worse than a white con SO, right? Than a white SO. It's not a con. And even though it's only a percent, well, if you add it up across 10 or 15 or 20 enhancements, it's a lot. Right? And so that's but I said then, right, that's the way I do it. But this other guy was like, well, I'd rather 32% is close enough, and I'd rather just have the permanent enhancement on. Like, that's up to you. It doesn't make him better or worse, but if the conventional wisdom is to do one of those, then whoever's doing the other one isn't following it. That doesn't make you a noob. Right? And I think that's where people have been harsh, because they acted like, instead of just saying, well, gee, I do it this way, they said, you noob, how do you not know this? Right? Well, yeah, nobody's going to want to listen to that. But I think what the one commenter was trying to say, but again, by being rude about it, I think the point was missed. What he was trying to say was, by saying I'm going to show a tutorial, by naming your video, like my videos generally aren't called tutorials, right? By naming it, by putting that in the thumbnail, by making it a big thing that you're showing how to play the game, there's a certain expectation that you have a certain level of knowledge and facility with the game. And if what you're doing doesn't match the conventional wisdom, then people will think you don't know what you're doing, even though you might, right? I know what I'm doing. I know what the conventional wisdom is. I reject it. I have my own reasons for doing what I do. Remember, I said a couple of episodes ago, I think, there was this whole discussion for years in City of Heroes that the claim was not just that resistance was greater than defense, but that resistance was really greater than defense. Okay? And I have always rejected that assertion. I do not agree with it. I prefer defense. That doesn't mean I don't know why they said it. I explained why in great detail. I know what they said. I know why they said it. I think that they're being short-sighted by only counting how much physical damage is being done in the numbers, right? They're just looking at how big the numbers are. The numbers don't tell the whole story. Somebody actually said that, I think, in one of my comments. The numbers don't tell the whole story, right? He was talking about being a devices blaster, and using the Vice's Blaster used to be able to use their targeting drone, I think it was, to buff their 2 hits so much that when they didn't need accuracy before the enhancement diversification, before they nerfed things, right? When you could put 6 damage enhancements on the same power, they could do hasten, probably perma haste, and then target drone for the buff to hit, and they're pretty much didn't have to do anything but 6 slot their damage, and they were doing huge amounts of damage. And when they did the nerf, he got really upset, right? And he said it's probably true that if you put recharge enhancers and you're doing, in other words, instead of doing 5 slow big attacks, you're doing 10 quicker smaller attacks, and you're doing the same total damage. But he said you get trapped into wanting to see bigger and bigger numbers floating over the heads of the enemies, right? And you get into that trap, and then you get frustrated that the numbers aren't as big, right? And so I think that's the trap that the resistance ideologues, if you want to call them that, fell into. Is all they cared about was how big of a number of damage wasn't being done to you, like how much total damage you're taking over X period of time. And they wanted it to be slow and predictable because that would give you time to hit your inspirations or hit your panic powers, right? Whereas with a defense, it's absolutely true. You can go from fine to dead so fast you don't have time to hit your panic power. However, that happening is pretty rare. And if you know it can happen, there are ways to mitigate it. And you're still avoiding all of that mez and all those secondary effects for which there's almost no defense, right? The slow powers of the slow effects of ice and the swarms from the devouring earth, yeah, those things are very, very hard to avoid. Why am I missing a quartz that's just sitting here not moving? They're very hard to avoid having that. It's very hard to avoid having the effect happen on you if it hits. The way to avoid the effect is not to get hit, right? And so I argue that defense is superior because of that. But that doesn't mean I don't know what the resistance argument is, that I'm not familiar with it. And it doesn't make me a noob because I prefer defense to resistance. But when I was on the City of Heroes forums playing my SR Scrapper, seeing my SR Scrapper do better, sometimes even than tankers, right? When I was on teams that had tankers, I saw that reflexes and defense worked great. But when I was on the forum arguing to that effect, I was called a noob, right? You're a noob who doesn't understand how the defenses in City of Heroes work. Like, I absolutely do understand how they work. And it's why, and I also understand how secondary effects work, and that's why I prefer defense to resistance, right? But because plus res was the flavor of the day, you know, the way flavor of the month and flavor of the year builds work is anybody who doesn't do that is considered to be a newbie, right? And I think that's what ended up happening to this one YouTuber, is that he acts like he appears to be, how do I say it? He appears to be selling himself as an expert, but then he's not doing the FOTM stuff. He's not doing following the conventional wisdom. And so all the people who follow the conventional wisdom and think they're experts say, oh, then you're not an expert. Now, I'm not saying I'm an expert in everything about this game. I'm the first person to admit that I know far less about things like blasters and corruptors than I do about scrappers and stalkers, because I've gotten scrapper stalkers and multiple scrapper stalkers and brutes and even a couple tanks to level 50. I've never gotten anybody else. I've gotten some dominators close. I feel pretty intelligent about dominators. And that's it. Oh, and a mastermind. I've gotten a mastermind to 50, so I can speak intelligently about masterminds. I'm nowhere near as good at masterminds as I am at brutes and scrappers and stalkers, but I know a little about them, right? I can talk intelligently about them because I actually did. I hate this room. I actually did, can I find where that is? I actually did get one mastermind to 50. So I anyway, my main point here is that uh, the the beauty of City of Heroes is that City of Heroes can be played lots of different ways. Whether it's by playing on different servers. I'm never going to find this hallway, am I? No matter how many times I've been on this map, I can never find this other spot. I always end up going in circles, trying to look for it. Did I get to it? No. I can never remember the trick to it. Here it is. God. Yeah, I really hate this particular room. Just because I can never find that tunnel. And no matter how many times I've been in it, I just can't remember how to get to it. This sort of thing drove the new girl, when she was playing this game with me, absolutely crazy. She could never find stuff. And in retrospect, I really should have played a character that had teleport as a movement power. Got teleport other, and I could have just found places and teleported her to me. So yeah, the beauty of City of Heroes, guys, is you play however you want. That's why it's a great game. The flexibility. Even within an archetype, different dominators or different scrappers, different stalkers are going to play differently. So Dark Melee Energy is it plays very differently from Claw's Regen. They're both good. I don't think one's better than the other. They just play differently. And that's good. That's a good thing, right? It means that no matter what your play style is, no matter what preferred way you have to play, no matter how you want to approach the game, almost any play style you can think of can be accommodated by City of Heroes. That's why it's such a great game. It didn't start out that way, right? Statesman had a few very clear ideas, but over the years, as leadership changed and as they built more and more stuff, the different archetypes with City of Villains, the epic pool powers, the epic archetypes, the different zones, the different types of game content, as they did this, they left all the old stuff in and just kept adding new stuff, instead of doing what some games do where they completely replace the old stuff with new stuff, like Star Wars Galaxies with the new game experience. Since City of Heroes left all the old stuff in and let you keep playing the old way or doing the new stuff, it gave you a whole bunch of different ways to play, which means any play style now that you want to play can pretty much be accommodated. And if you can't find it on one server, there's probably a server that you can. And that's a good thing. Choice is a good thing. Should we do one more mission? Save the scientists. We're going to do it. Oh, I was going to say, we're going to do it, but I'll stalk it because it's getting kind of late. But no, we have to defeat everybody. So, all right. Yeah, the game always knows when I say I'm just going to do one more mission to give me a defeat all in a 5-floor lab with that room that has all the lab equipment in it. That literally every time I'm like, I'll just do one more mission and log out, I get that. I get a 5-floor lab map with at least one and sometimes 2 floors that have that room with the lab equipment. It's like, I swear to God, there's spyware somehow in this game where it can hear what I'm saying, and it's programmed to give me a mission like that, or a giant outdoor mission, defeat all, when I have said, this is my last mission, we'll just do one more quickie. All the other missions have been quick. This one's going to be long. And instead of a 50-minute or 55-minute video, I'm going to end up with an hour and 10. Wow, we're almost halfway to level 35. I can't believe how fast they must still have boosted XP going for the holidays, I guess. It's well after New Year's now. It's the 9th. In fact, this is my nephew's birthday, guys. My nephew was born in 09. Years after this game came out. When he was born, this game was still live and I was still playing it. I thought, gee, maybe someday I can get him to play it with me. And then it went belly up, and I thought, well, I never will. Now he technically could play it with me. He's 17 years old. He's learning to drive. He's going to get his driver's license in a couple weeks. I can't believe it. Unfortunately, he has no interest in these kinds of video games, so... Okay, we're going to leave the quartz. No, 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 no. I'm not standing in the quartz. It's way too big a debuff. Even these guys can hit me in the quartz. Give me your hit points. Thank you. Alright, I'm going to take this thing out, because in case I come back here, I don't want to have to deal with it. Alright, sentries next. I want to make sure we one-shot him, because I hate the cairns. They're worse than quartz. Oh, wait. Interrupt. Okay. Yeah, we got to put build up, or it won't one-shot him. You can see, he was reaching his arm out. He was about to throw a cairn down. I've said this before. I'm going to say it. I don't want to be broken record, but since it's a new playthrough, I will say this. I don't mind the cairns and the quartz, right? So the cairns make them unhittable. The quartz make me unmissable. I don't mind them, okay? I really don't. What I mind is that the enemies are able to put them down over and over and over again. So what I would like to do, right? Let's say this guy puts down a cairn, right? He puts a cairn down. If I'm stupid enough to stay here and try to hit him and miss, faceplant, that's up to me. Right? But if I'm smart enough to pull him out of it, he shouldn't be able to just put another one down as soon as I stop, which is what they do. So it's out, out, out. It should have a recharge on it. It shouldn't be able to do it immediately. He should have to leave one out, and he can't put another one out till the first one is gone, and it maybe has a timer on it or something, so that I can tactically say, as a tactic, I am going to pull him out and be smart about it. And by being smart, I should be rewarded. I believe in GMs or game developers rewarding smart play. And unfortunately with the cairns, there is no smart play. As soon as you pull them out, which is the smart thing, they just make another one. And that's annoying. So all I can do then is, instead is to just try to assassinate them, and at least as a stalker, I can avoid the cairns by one-shotting the enemies, right? By one-shotting the sentries. You can't quite do it to the quartz because they have resistance to smashing. So you can't one-shot the quartz, not the quartz, but the geodes or whatever that put the quartz out. So they have resistance to smashing, so you can't quite do it to them. Alright, so we have an elevator there. That's where we're going next. But before we do that, we have to clean out... Oh, there's nothing else. I thought we had more stuff. Okay. No. I want that. Not that. Alright. Okay, 1 level down. 4 to go. How do I know there will be 4? Because I wanted to be done quickly. Like, I don't want to race through the mission, but I was like, okay, let's do another short mission. But of course, it's a long mission. Let's see. Okay, we'll go this way. So we're looking for 5 scientists to save. I thought maybe there'd be a guy down there, but there's not. We'll come down and get those guys in a sec because we have to defeat all. But oh, I hate these things. Come on, aggro. Come on, aggro. They do give me time to go back into hide and assassinate them, which is funny. But it's annoying that you cannot target them. You can actually do damage to them with an AoE, but I don't have any non-targeted AoEs. Right, they're all targeted, which means, and I tried before the disrupt, or this thing, the thing that turns them dizzy, it doesn't work on them while they're in tree form. Yeah, I mean, you're going back to like how you're doing things being perfectly fine, but you're considered a noob. We're going to go here first, but we'll come back. This should be a three elevator northern section. So we'll head south first, and then we'll go this other way because that's going to be the other elevator, presumably. We're talking about like being considered a noob, right? For everybody, quote unquote, the right way to play is with sets. Purple sets. Sets that give your blaster more defense than my Stalker. I'm a noob for only having 30% defense as a Stalker. I should have 75 or whatever the cap is. I don't remember what the cap is anymore. It used to be 75 for Scrappers and Stalkers, but I don't know if they've changed it. So, yeah, I should be at the cap. Probably not at level 34, but certainly by the 50s I should be at the cap. I won't be. I'll probably be at 45% defense, something like that, even if I have sets. That's enough, right? We'll be able to do plus 3 and 4 missions. It'll be fine. But the quote-unquote experts want to make the numbers bigger. Why? Why do you need them bigger? Just because they're bigger. Bigger is better. Right? That's the rule of RPGs. If there's a number on your character sheet, make it bigger. If there's... What is this? Who said that the rule for video, for like computer RPGs is if there's a number on your character sheet, make it bigger. If there's an NPC, get a quest from it or kill it. Like either it gives you a quest or you kill it. If it's not going to give you a quest, you kill it. Right? Like, that's the conventional wisdom of RPG players. And so, yeah, there's a number, make it bigger. Why? Because bigger is better. And so, anyway, my supergroup, the Daybreak Initiative, they were all into the sets. Nina, the group leader, was writing instruction manuals on how to farm and how you need 1 billion influence to do what she was telling you to do and all this stuff. Right? That's what the supposed experts were doing. And I had, at that point, left Homecoming because they weren't allowing us to make videos anymore here at the time. And I had switched to Rebirth. And because my character on Rebirth was new, and I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. Because my character on Rebirth was new, and she was my first character, I said, well, what I'm going to do is just level her up to 50 with just SOs. Right? And that's the cheapest way to do it. And I'll just save all my recipes and save all of my, and sell some of my orange salvage, like this character, right? So 22 million influence, right? My goal was to get her to level 50 and have 40 or 50 million influence, and then I could use her as a sugar mommy for my other characters, right? And so my other characters could have sets. And that's how, what's her name? Nightmare Lass got her sets. Because she was using Tiger Shrike's influence that I saved by only doing SOs, right? But also, I wanted to show in my video on Rebirth, which was also much more in the original state than Homecoming was, right? It wasn't in the original state. No server could be, but it was the way it was at, right at shutdown. And I knew when the game was live, you could play the whole game all the way to 50 with SOs. So I wanted to show how to do that, and how you could eventually be putting beyond plus 2 times 2 and stuff like this, right? And I mentioned to my supergroup, like, they knew that I was on SOs, and so there's this one really awesome player who played a lot of Scrappers and Stalkers, and always gave them the same name, or various variations on that name. And he played a lot of Scrappers and Stalkers, and there were a couple of other people in the chat, right, in the Discord, and we were talking about this, right, that I was doing this Stalker on SOs only, and a couple of the newer players, that is, people who came to City of Heroes with Homecoming and didn't play COH back in the day, right, had learned all the conventional wisdom of how to do sets and all this stuff, and they were like, basically they kind of said, what are you, some kind of noob that you don't know that SOs aren't any good, or something like that. And this friend of mine who knew me and had played with me said, oh, Scrapper Lock, or I guess I was Silver Phoenix in their chat, right? So he said, oh yeah, Phoenix likes to play the game on hard mode, right? He said, you know, like, that's the hardest the game is, because you don't have any set bonuses, right? All those little cheats that the set bonuses give you, the little plus 7.5% recharge that you have from 2 or 3 different sets, you don't have that when you have SOs. You're just going off raw recharge. And what he said was, you guys who have the sets, if you tried to play with SOs, you'd get your butts kicked. Now, he was an original player, right? He was like my age, he's in his 50s, and so he played the game when it first came out, and he was like, yeah, you people who are used to using inventions as a crutch and having sets by the time you're in your 30s, you guys would get absolutely owned if you tried to play with just SOs, because all the crutches you're used to having on SOs you don't have all the crutches you're used to having with sets you don't have when you have SOs. Now, I don't know if that's true. My guess is they'd figure it out, right? It's not that hard, right? They would figure it out. Maybe they'd have to be more careful about their, which sets of inspirations they carry and stuff like that. But yeah, they'd figure it out. It's not that difficult. But it is harder with just SOs than it is with sets, right? Because you don't get those extra bonuses. And so, yeah, whereas one group of people was sitting there going, okay, well, anybody who's just on SOs is a noob. My other friend was saying, actually, whoever's playing just on SOs is playing on hardcore mode. And then when I told them about doing, like, Iron Man mode, they're like, what's that? I'm like, if you faceplant, you delete the character. And they were like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? And I'm like, yeah. How do you do that? And when I told them I got the one character, was it level 19 or something before I faceplanted? They were like, how'd you get to level 19 without a faceplant? Well, part of it is I'm used to playing with just SOs and being a little more careful than the guys with sets are, probably. Now, I'm not saying this is the right way to play. This is how I like to play. Right? But the fact that I'm using SOs, I'm not using SOs because I don't know about sets. I'm using SOs because I wanted to do that. Right? So it doesn't necessarily make you a newbie just because you aren't following the conventional wisdom. I hate the conventional wisdom in games, guys. Hate it with a passion. Right? In D&D, the conventional wisdom is that Rangers are the weakest class. They're a terrible class. Nobody in their right mind would play a Ranger. So what do I want to do usually? Play a Ranger. Prove everybody wrong. They're fine. Oh, but they don't do as much DPS. Like, what do you mean DPS? There's no DPS in D&D. There aren't any seconds. Oh, well, DPR, right? Damage per round. Well, who cares? Right? A lot of people discount utility. Utility abilities, right? Things that are like, what do you call them? Situational abilities. I like to have good general use abilities, these 5, right? But I also like having things like this Disrupt, which is a situational power. Under certain circumstances, in certain situations, Disrupt will be very useful to me, and it has been already a couple times, right? I don't mind a power that I only turn on once or twice a story arc if, when I turn it on, it does what I need it to do and it's useful. There are players who will not take powers that are situational. They think they're objectively bad, and they're objectively a waste of a power choice. My thing is, I've got a closed attack chain. I don't need any more attack powers, and as a consequence, I don't mind having some situational powers added in. Now you're seeing a little bit what happens to us when we get swarmed. Wasn't too bad. The big thing I don't like about Devouring Earth is how large they are. And I can't see the tops of their heads, and I can't therefore see the hit point bars on the really tall ones like the Razor Vines when they are swarming around me. That's the only thing I don't like. I mean, I don't care about getting swarmed. I just wish they weren't quite so tall. Okay. Have we done this hole? We have. Alright, so we've defeated everybody on this level. There really should only be one more level. Usually when you get that one with the 3 elevators across the top, you came down on the middle elevator and the other 2 elevators go to one level, and they usually don't have any other levels. So we should have just one more level to go. But we'll see. How are we doing on enhancements? Yeah, we've gotten quite a bit. Nothing I really need, but that's okay. So yeah, I mean, I was considered a noob in Super Reflexes back in live because I didn't take Boxing Tough and Weave. Weave stacks with your stuff. You should do it. Plus def to everything, right? And tough, there's no resistance. Remember, resistance greater than defense, right? There's no resistance in the Super Reflex set. At least be smart enough to take tough and 6-slot it for resistance so that whatever resistance it gave at the time, 10%, you can get it up to whatever it was, 25% or something like that, right? Because it's the only resistance you can have in the whole game at this point. They didn't have resistance inspirations, and resistance is better than defense. How could you be so stupid as to not take Boxing Tough and Weave? Is it because I wanted my martial arts powers? Because I want my toggles? And like, you're an idiot. Why are you taking toggles? Do perma-haste, perma-elude. P.S. guys, when they nerfed that stuff, it didn't affect me. I mean, I got affected by the global defense nerf like everybody in terms of the total amount that my defenses did. But I never did perma-haste, perma-elude. So I didn't, like, those guys were screwed because they had to completely respec their characters. Because they hadn't taken the toggles because they were getting along with Boxing Tough, Weave, and perma-elude. And then when they made it so you couldn't do perma-elude, all of a sudden now they needed the toggles, but they hadn't taken the toggles. Like, didn't bother me. Like, that part didn't bother me at all because I hadn't, I had not bothered to do the perma-elude, so I didn't care, right? So, yeah, there's been many, many times in this game where I did not follow the conventional wisdom, was called a noob, or worse, for doing that. People told me, I remember somebody actually saying to me, "You're never gonna, I'll never team with you," and I'm like, what do I care? I don't do pickup groups, and my super group knows I'm a good player, and they don't second guess my build. Several of them asked me, why don't you do perma-elude? And I explained why. I said, because I don't want to have to click those two, like hasten and elude, or hasten and practice brawler, or whatever, over and over again. I don't see the point of that. We still have 2 scientists to save. They must be on this level, I guess, unless there maybe is another level. But yeah, so many times I have gone against the conventional wisdom in building characters, and you know what? I almost never regret it. Every once in a while, I'll try to build the way people say, and usually it's not as good as they say. Or I might be like, yeah, it does work. Oh yeah, it does make the game easier, but it's not any fun. Right? And I play this game to have fun. Now, I will say one bit of build advice that I did follow, and I actually think it works really well. Mostly because it fits into what I wanted. is in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the original game. Now, guys, I'm going to come out of hide. I'm going to say the spoiler. And then when I go back into hide, the spoiler's over. So if you don't want to hear spoilers about a 20-year-old game, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Sorry, I got a bit of a cough. Don't listen if you don't want to hear spoilers. When I go back into hide, you can listen again. Mute it otherwise. Okay, so in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, you start out as a character who has an ally who's a Jedi Knight, and you're searching for a Sith Lord. But you start out as a guy who's either a scoundrel, I can't remember the other one, a scoundrel, a scout, or a soldier, something like that. You're using blasters, and you're like Han Solo or Chewbacca or somebody like that. Over the course of the game, eventually you get to a Jedi temple and find out that you're Force sensitive, and they start training you as a Jedi. Now, what I was doing, not knowing that in the first part of the game, I leveled up my character every chance I got, because the game says level up, so I leveled up, and I was like 8th level by the time I was able to become a Jedi. And then I didn't know this was going to happen. The game let you, it was very much like 3rd edition D&D statistically. It let you multi-class and get a second class, dual class into Jedi. And then you would pick Jedi, Sentinel, Consular, whatever. And then you could level up as Jedi instead of as Sentinel, or instead of as Scout or Scoundrel. And so at the end of the game, I was a level 8 Scout, I think, level 12 Guardian, or something like that. And the problem with this was that you only get Force powers each time you level up Jedi. So I only had 12 levels of Force powers. And my Force was pretty weak because I hadn't done that much with the saber skill and everything else. And I had a really rough time at the end of the game. It was fun. I had a blast playing the game. It's my favorite computer RPG probably ever. Up there with Mass Effect and Jade Empire. And my character, I had a lot of trouble. I was able to win the final battle, but I actually had to look up how to do it. And I didn't have some of the things they said you should use, like saber throw and stuff. So it was very difficult, and it took me like 5-6 attempts to do it. What somebody said in one of the forums was the way to do this is don't level up. Right? Level up a couple times and then stop at like level 4 and just let the game tell you can level up and ignore it. You can keep gaining XP, and then when you get to the training part where you become a Jedi, just do level up, level up, level up, level up, and instead of being a level 8 Scout, level 1 Jedi at that point, you'll be like a level 4 Scout, level 5 Jedi. And the one guy said, dude, you have to do second level, I think. The game makes you do it as a tutorial or whatever, but he said, I don't level up except for that. And so I often, once I got better at the game, used to leave my character on level 2 or 3, no more than that, and do all the other levels as Jedi. And it makes the later game, the early game is brutally hard, by the way. It's brutally hard. You're going to have to save and reload. You'll die a bunch of times. There's one really bad fight against Calo Nord, I think his name is, who's a bounty hunter. You're going to have to save and reload that a bunch of times and get lucky, because the game expects you to be like at least 5th or 6th level at that point, and you're only 2nd level, right? But when you get to the end of the game and you're a level 2/18 Scout Jedi or Scoundrel Jedi, oh my gosh, you can just absolutely own enemies because all of your Jedi skills are maxed out, right? So I learned to do that. And that was a build guide kind of suggestion. But the reason that worked for me is because I love the Force and I love Jedis and I wanted to be a Jedi, right? So that plays into what I wanted and my preferred playstyle. So I was willing to just suck it up on Taris until we got off Taris and onto Dantooine, which is where you learn the Jedi skills, and then you can level up Jedi. And so that's how I do it all the time, right? So every time I played Knights of the Old Republic, that's how I've done it. I always do it that way now. It's pretty much the one and only time I followed the conventional wisdom and did what the build guide experts said. All right, that's the end of spoilers. And I was just explaining that because the build guide experts in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic were basically suggesting a build that made me more likely to play the way I wanted to play, I was willing to follow it. But most of the time, the build guides are fine if you don't know what you're doing and you want to follow it. They'll usually give you a functional character, right? That will at least play the way the guy who created the guide wants it to play, if not the way you want it to play, right? So you'll have if you follow build guides for City of Heroes, you'll with sets and everything, you can certainly have a functional character. It's just going to be very expensive to do, and it's going to play a certain way. And then the question just becomes, is that the way you want to play, right? Because if it's not, then the build guide does not avail you anything, right? Because if you're like this other player and you want to play mostly against swarms of white cons or even blue cons, right? I had one of my friends on my super group who was not at all embarrassed about this, by the way, even though I think some of the other players on the super group thought, oh, wow, you're pretty newbie if you have to do this, right? He used to play his controller against plus ones, minus ones. And I know the supergroup looked down on this. Some of the people in the supergroup looked down on it because they said, well, you mean when you're low level, right? And he was like, no, I mean, even when I'm level 40, I use minus ones. And they're like, why? And he said, because you're more likely to hit them, so I don't keep missing my holds, which is super aggravating. And I totally agree with him about that. And he said, then because controllers don't do a lot of damage, you can at least take enemies out, right? And it's not that hard to do. So he said, he would set it on like ×3 or something, but blue cons. He said, I'd rather have a large group of blue cons that I can throw my AoE immobilized dots on, the damage over times, than to have a small number of purple enemies that are going to like resist my holds. It's just super frustrating to have that happen, right? I know that player lost a great amount of respect from some of the real build jockeys in my old supergroup, right? Because those guys are all about, you know, architect farming and spines fire brutes and making 1 billion influence and leveling up in 3 days and all of that kind of stuff. And he and I were like, we're playing the game, like we're playing the missions and doing the story arcs, right? And he did that against -1 because it made a more comfortable experience for him, right? So a build guide of mine wouldn't help him because my premise is I want to get up to +2 and +3 essentially ASAP because I like to do that, right, and have that challenge, but against smaller groups, and I'm not interested in fighting blue cons, right? And his build guide wouldn't work for me, but it doesn't make either one of them wrong. That's the point I'm trying to make, guys. You can do whatever you want in the game. Don't let other people tell you that your preferred way of playing is wrong. And also, don't listen to them if they call you a noob for not playing their way. Now, I'm not saying there aren't newbie things to do. The girl that I taught how to play COH did lots of actual newbie stuff, right? And I saw her doing it, and sometimes I warned her, you might not want to do this because of X, right? But a lot of times I just let her make the mistake because I remember what it was like when I was playing City of Heroes and I learned this for the first time, and I didn't want to rob her of that experience, right? Because I have a lot of fun memories about stuff like that. Why would I want to rob her of that experience? By the way, I do want to mention here, she is the reason for all these signs. I had a few of the signs. I think I had this one initially. And I think I had, I called this I did this one. Like the signs inside the rooms, I had up already. But these signs here on the hallways telling you where to go, I'm so glad I did this because it reminds me too. But I set them up for her because I designed this base, right? But she didn't, and she'd never been inside a base of a superhero before, right? When we started the game. So I brought her in here and I showed her, and she's like, oh, thanks for marking where these things are because now she can find everything, right? Okay, let's see. Do we have anything we're going to craft here? I thought we might. Yes, accuracy. Go ahead and create. Let's just make them all. It's fine. And defense debuff we don't need. And what is this? This is resist damage. We're probably not going to need that. Because I'm not putting more than 3 slots in it. I don't put more than 3 slots in a passive. I don't care what the sets say. Right? It's not worth it to me. To me, it's not useful. And let me explain why. Let's just get this. I might see if that one sells on the auction house. So why don't I want to put this in a passive? Hang on. Let's look at it. Right? It gives 13% reduced endurance. No, 13% damage resistance and 23% reduced endurance. Do I need reduced endurance on a passive? No. Why would I slot this when I could slot in a regular IO that does 20% defense? Now you could say, but Scrapper, look at all these nice little bonuses down here, plus 2%, 0.5% to all endurance, reduction and negative energy resistance and melee defense and all this other stuff. Don't care. I am not. That's only useful if you put 5 or 6 slots into it. I'm not going to bother. I am not putting 5 slots into a power that can't even use half of the bonuses, the recharge rates and the reduced endurance. None of that affects a passive. So no thanks. Not going to do that. But that's me, right? There are lots of people who have 5 and 6 slot passives. They throw those things in there even though it doesn't affect half of the power. It doesn't really affect the power. And they want the bonus, the set bonus, right? Again, a lot of people do not build for this up top thing, the 13% resistance, the 22% endurance cost. Nope, they're building for the set bonuses down below, and that's all they care about. Oh, these are worth $1 million. Let's sell it for 500K. And that'll earn us some money. Maybe. Maybe nobody wants it. All right. Well, let's sell it for a little lower. I'm not going to hold it for days. I'm not going to bother. Let's sell it for 300,000. Yeah, I mean it's sold for $1 million, so I don't know. Well, I guess we'll leave it up. Sooner or later it'll sell. Actually, maybe not enough people are bidding on it. Hang on. There's 380 bidding and 162 for sale, with $1 million as the most recent purchases. So I'm surprised nobody's willing to buy it for 300,000. But we'll leave it up, and maybe it'll sell. All right, guys, we're going to stop there. I hope you have enjoyed. And until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Soloing the Stalker on City of Heroes.